Welcome back everybody, my name's Nick930 and this is my review for the recently released Kingdom Hearts 3. Kingdom Hearts 3 is the 10th entry to the long-running Disney-inspired action role-playing adventure series, and the grand finale for the main storyline first established back in 2002. This latest game brings players through several popular Disney-inspired levels with high-quality visuals, a clean and simple control scheme, and a ton of extra side activities to enjoy after the credits roll. For those of you unfamiliar with this series, Kingdom Hearts is about a young boy named Sora that travels between various Disney worlds with his friends Donald Duck and Goofy, as they fight these strange enemies known as the Heartless in a quest to protect the universe. The storyline is probably one of the most convoluted and confusing of any games I've ever played, and just to prepare for this review, I spent some time playing through the original games in the series just to get a better idea of what was happening. But even after playing through those, watching summaries of the plot and reading multiple articles, it's still just as confusing, but I'll try my best to explain the main premise of this latest title. In Kingdom Hearts 3, players play as Sora again, and are instructed to travel between Disney-inspired worlds to find a mysterious power of waking. As the player travels to each world, they'll meet fan-favorite characters, experience familiar moments from the films, or even go on entirely new adventures. While I appreciate the amount of work that went into recreating some of the most memorable scenes from films like Tangled and Frozen, it does seem like a cheap way to extend the length of the game's narrative. They even recreated the entire Let It Go portion of Frozen as a cutscene, which, as cool as it is to see the scene recreated almost identically, it really didn't need to be in the game. Each world starts about the same way, with Sora and his friends running into some important characters, teaming up with them to fight the Heartless through several corridors, getting separated so that the characters can recreate their big scenes, and then a big epic boss fight with some weird looking Heartless enemy off to the side. It's the same formula that's been used in previous titles in the series, so fans should already know what to expect. But now, each world is given much more screen time, taking about an hour or so for each world's main storyline. Meanwhile, the actual plot of Kingdom Hearts 3 is just as ludicrous as past entries. Sora and his allies are trying to reunite in order to prepare for a big final battle with the real Organization 13. Meanwhile, the members of the organization are visiting all the Disney worlds, trying to use the newer Disney characters to further their evil plot. I can't really dive too far into the details without spoiling the plot for fans, but what I do want to talk about is the voice actor performance and the writing quality. This game's cutscenes are just painful to sit through because of the terrible pacing, cheesy writing, and bad voiceover execution. About half of every cutscene is dead silent as a character stops to think of how to respond, and then typically respond with some weird gasp. And then you have these contradicting storylines that don't seem to make much sense at all. The Pirates of the Caribbean storyline, for example, is supposed to take place during the film At World's End, meaning by the time Jack and the crew come back to the land of the living and participate in the final battle in that whirlpool, the Kraken should have already been dead. But for the sake of making the scene more epic, Square Enix decided to write around that and have the Kraken take part in the finale. Then there's other weird story-related issues, like the entirely pointless trip to the 100-acre woods, some retcon characters, and the overly confusing nature of the game's overarching plot. This game's story is just not something you can really take seriously. It's obviously not going to follow the films exactly, even if Donald and Goofy are constantly reminding Sora not to interfere with the Order, and the actual parts of the plot that are unique to Kingdom Hearts are just ridiculous. There are moments where there's some quality writing, don't get me wrong, and I think the overall finale is satisfying enough. But just be prepared for a very Japanese approach to storytelling. But if you're a fan of Kingdom Hearts, none of this should be news to you. The big draw to this series is the gameplay experience and how it's incorporated into several of Disney's most popular film franchises. First, let's talk about the core gameplay design. Kingdom Hearts is a melee-focused role-playing adventure game. Most of the gameplay loop revolves around you running into an arena, smashing the X button to defeat these weird Heartless enemies, and then ranking up with stronger stats and abilities. Each character has their own set of abilities that can be equipped from the menu in between fight sequences. Abilities include extended combos, dodging, and special attacks. There are a number of different special attacks that can be activated by selecting the one you want to use with a rear trigger and then pressing the triangle button. Partner attacks involve either Goofy or Donald, or some other Disney character that happens to be tagging along with you at the time. These are typically AoE attacks and are great for giving yourself some breathing room and defeating larger groups of enemies. Another form of special attacks are form changes for your signature Keyblade. A form change will temporarily make your weapon more powerful, and will change up your available combos. Hitting enemies enough times before the timer runs out will often reward you with a second form change, allowing you to deal even more damage and even trigger a final attack to end your streak. There's also Disney attraction attacks, which can be activated after striking specially marked enemies. This allows you to call in a Disney park-inspired attraction to fight enemies temporarily, like the Buzz Lightyear shooter game or a river rafting ride. These are a really cool idea, but I was disappointed to find so few available attractions throughout the game. The game chooses attractions in each arena for you, so you're limited to only one type per fight, and there's only a handful available. I'm surprised rides like Splash Mountain and Dumbo weren't included to help add to the variety. In addition to these, there's also this Dark Sora mode you can activate if your health drops to a critical level, giving you an extra burst of health and a new set of powerful moves to help get control of the more difficult fights. There's also magical attacks, which can be used to take advantage of any enemy weaknesses. Using a fireball on a giant snow monster, for example, will stun him temporarily. Magic can be upgraded as you continue through the game, unlocking more powerful forms of existing attacks, but because of the exhaustive list of attacks already available, I never really felt a need for any other magic casting outside of the healing option. Then there's also the focus attacks, which allow you to slow down time and target specific enemies. But the aiming control felt a bit too sensitive, and I found that this ability just slowed down the pace of the gameplay too much to be practical. The combat is so much more fun than the older games, but fans of the original games will definitely find that it's also too easy. I very rarely found myself dying on the normal difficulty in this game, whereas the original game from 2002 could be incredibly difficult towards the end. I think the design for the attraction attacks is a bit shallow, and the keyform changes are far too easy to come by. Adjustments to these elements and some better pacing throughout the game to rack up the difficulty would likely improve the overall gameplay loop. Without that challenge, the game can feel like a repetitive grind as you push through long corridors disguised as snowy paths and lush green forest. I often found myself running past groups of enemies because I was tired of fighting and just wanted to see the next cutscene play out. In addition to the combat, there's also a bit of platforming and exploration mechanics built in. Platforming has never really been the series' strong point, and it hasn't necessarily improved all that much here. Platforming in this game typically involves very simple jumps, with the more complex platforming being done automatically for you. And then there's this awkward air step mechanic that requires you to use the focus view to select distant platforms to dash to. There's also wall running, which functions fine for simply climbing up the side of buildings, but can get awkward when the game requires you to change directions or fight while climbing. There's also a few points where you need to skydive and even grind around like Sonic Adventures, but these moments are rare and don't really add much to the experience. Each world is loaded with hidden chests and destructible objects that reward the player with health, magic, and special potions that can be used to help in combat. When you're done grinding through hordes of Heartless, you can participate in a unique minigame designed specifically for each world. Pirates of the Caribbean, for example, lets you sail a pirate ship on the open seas, with multiple islands to explore for secrets, and enemy pirate ships to fight in a naval combat design that's eerily similar to what Ubisoft created in Assassin's Creed 3. Other minigames include cooking with Remy from Ratatouille, snowboarding in Arendelle, or completing combat simulations with the team in Big Hero 6. Each world also has a number of hidden Mickey emblems that need to be photographed with the player's camera, which is a fun optional activity inspired by the hidden Mickey emblems found in the Disney theme parks. None of these minigames are necessarily interesting enough to keep me coming back for more as they were intended, but they do offer a nice break from the repetitive nature of the main gameplay experience, and give each world its own unique flair. They're also more detailed and fun to play than any of the minigames in the older Kingdom Hearts games. And then there's the Gummy Ship. The Gummy Ship is the spaceship used by Sora and his friends to travel between worlds. In previous games, you would choose a planet to visit and then be forced to pilot a ship on a fixed path while shooting weird spaceships. This gameplay mechanic returns, but is expanded on greatly, with a large open-ended area to explore, with optional space battles triggered by proximity, and lots of asteroids to fly around to get to where you want to go. Unfortunately, the flying mechanics just aren't fun. The controls are stiff, the ship by default is slow, and the game switching from the smooth 60 FPS to a locked 30 FPS just for this mode makes me question why they even bothered including it at all. You can always create your own custom ship, improving the speed, the weapons, and the maneuverability. But considering you can bypass almost all the encounters and fly straight to the planets you want, makes the entire process just not worth the effort. Now, just to be clear, Kingdom Hearts 3's gameplay is way better than any of the other Kingdom Hearts games overall. Everything from the Gummy Ship content to the design of each world is 10 times more enjoyable than the other games. But a lot of the gameplay mechanics used for Kingdom Hearts 3 seem to be directly inspired by other games that just do it better. Grinding on rails is much better in Sonic, fighting pirate ships is more fun in Black Flag, and flying around in space is better in countless other games. Kingdom Hearts 3 doesn't really have any defining gameplay elements that stand out, but together they add up to a game with an ambitious level of variety, and the drive to see more classic Disney and Pixar inspired worlds keeps the experience addicting all the way through. And finally, we have the visuals. Kingdom Hearts 3 is absolutely gorgeous, and even features 60 FPS gameplay in each of the highly detailed Disney worlds. Each world is properly realized with beautiful character designs, faithful artistic direction, and some impressive particle and physics effects. Worlds like the Toy Box are bright and colorful, and feature a ton of dynamic objects, making for a number of impressive looking battles, especially a giant ball pit in a toy store. Arendelle from Frozen looks beautiful with the soft snow tessellation effects and great environmental design. And the Pirates of the Caribbean world, while admittedly doesn't have the best water simulation, still has some gorgeous character model designs that are pretty darn close to the original source material. Most worlds even remodel the main trio to match the art style, making them look hyper-realistic in Pirates and plastic toys in Toy Story. It is a little strange seeing Hercules look all bulbous and fully rendered in 3D, but the environmental complexity and level of detail is beyond anything this series has done before. I really don't mind the visuals at all, but there are a few problems on the performance side. While typically the game runs at a smooth 60 FPS, there were instances, especially in the Kingdom of Corona, where you can feel the game stuttering as you travel between sections of the large open-ended forest. The game also struggles to maintain a smooth frame rate in the ball pit I mentioned earlier, and the large gummy ship sections are locked at 30 FPS, which really feels inconsistent and needless. Still, these problems are very minor when considering how great the game's overall visual design is, and I'm impressed by the results. Kingdom Hearts 3 is a worthy finale to this game's main storyline. While it's unclear if this is the last we'll see of this beloved franchise, it's great to see the series finally feature some solid gameplay mechanics. And the advancement in technology has allowed the team at Square Enix to properly capture these beautiful moments from popular Disney films with impressive accuracy. The story is still insanely confusing, and there's a couple of poor writing decisions throughout, but it's still undeniably fun to be able to interact with characters from Frozen and Toy Story, especially if you or your children are fans of these films. The combat mechanics feel more polished than ever, and the game's camera finally meets the standards of a AAA title, something that drove me nuts while playing through the old games. If you're a fan of Kingdom Hearts, chances are you won't be disappointed, though the game is noticeably easier, so I do recommend bumping the difficulty up a level from what you're used to. And if you're new to the series and are willing to look past the plot just to see some Disney stuff, then it's definitely worth checking this game out. Thank you all for watching, and if you want to learn more about Kingdom Hearts, mainly how it compares visually to the older games, check out my comparison video linked at the end. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this posted every week.